Welcome to day 16 of my Inventor IO 30 Days Lost in Space adventure. In this lesson, we go over connecting the 7-segment LED display that shows 4 7-segment LEDs. I have mine set up a little bit differently than what is depicted in the diagram. They're just using a piece of ribbon cable. It's actually more like this cable where it's got the female end on one side and the male end on the other. I just put mine on the breadboard and I ran individual leads to it. On the actual LED itself, it is labeled CLK, DIO, VCC, and GND. The VCC is the constant 5-volt power. The GND is the ground. And then the CLK and the DIO go to, in my case, I'm using pins 2 and 3. I think in the diagram they're showing 6 and 7, which doesn't really make much of a difference. The code is fairly simplistic. It goes over how to establish the display using the header file that we have to download. It defines the CLK and DIO pins, and then it just establishes the display to clear itself out, and then it goes through and does some tests on the display where it turns on all of the segments, and then it clears them out. We go in and we create an array for each of the letters or numbers that we want to display on the 7-segment board here. So there's a couple of things going on. I'll show you what the actual code looks like when we upload it. I have my brightness set to the lowest setting right now so it doesn't glare out the screen, but the LEDs do go very bright compared to what I have them set to. So let me just upload that code. We'll see right away. Flashes everything. It counts up, and then it says done. So let's go to the code view and we will break down each of the sections and see what is doing what. Okay, so at the computer view, you'll see that at the very top of this program, we have to include the TM1637 display.h header file. To get that, I downloaded a zip file from the Inventor IO website, and then under Sketch, include library, manage zip library, I was able to load in that zip file. And then once I typed in the TM1637 display, I knew that it registered because the header file name lit up in orange. I did download a couple of additional TM1637 header files. So you see right here, if I type in TM1637, it automatically lights up in orange because there's a header file specifically called TM1637. But I did download a couple of different header files because each of them contains different libraries and functions and things like that. So once I get my head wrapped around Arduino a little bit better, I may find that one header file works a little better than the other header file. Who knows? From there, we do a #define CLK2, #define DIO3. And that just says to define pin number 2 as CLK in the rest of our program, and to define pin number 3 as DIO in the rest of our program. Very much like doing an int CLK equals 2, or doing it as a constant, int CLK equals 2, as I have mentioned in prior videos. From there, we do TM1637 display, which calls up a function from the header file, and the function we're going to call up is display, and we'll say it equals TM1637 display CLK DIO. So we're basically preparing the display to use these pins internally. From there, we're going to create a constant uint 8_t, which does a hexadecimal call, and we create a variable array called data, and that'll equal 0xff 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 0xff. And if you're not familiar with hexadecimal, what we're doing here is we're setting up a data array that uses hex values to essentially turn things on and off with 16 bits of data, so 0 to 15, but they're registered as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, and F. So FF just tells it to turn on completely. Underneath here we have 0, 0, which means turn them off completely. Simplest way that I can think to put it. So underneath we do constant uint 8_t blank, create an array, open our curly brackets, 0x00, 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 0x00. So the data array calls up everything to turn on. The blank array calls up everything to turn off. Then we create another constant, uint 8_t, called done, which is also another array. And what this does is this creates characters for each of the segments of the LED. They go over it a little bit on the video, so I'll just paste that in for now. Inside of our setup, we'll do a display.clear and then a delay of 1000 milliseconds, which is 1 second. So the first thing that it does is it clears a display. Inside of our loop, we establish the brightness. We then turn on the data call, which is enable all of the segments, delay for a second, clear the display, and then delay for another second. So in our loop, we'll go display dot set brightness. In my case, I use 0, but we can use anything from 0 to 7. So 7 would be the brightest and 0 is the dimmest. From there we'll go display, set, segments, and we'll call up the data, which turns on all of the segments. We'll delay for 1 second. Then we'll do a display.clear. Delay for another second. We'll establish an integer of I. And then inside of a for loop, we'll say I equals 0. And then while I is less than or equal to 100, we can increment up through the counter. From there, we'll just do a display.show number DEC with the variable I. And this show number DEC, I'm under the impression stands for show number decimal. But in this case, we're using integers. So it's just showing the number on the display. We delay for 50 milliseconds. Then we exit out of that. So what this is doing is this section right here is just counting to 100 Once it gets out of there, we delay for another second. We clear the display. And then we display set segments done, which is the call up for this array here, which calls up all that you have to display the word. This is basically like a pause in this loop. Another way we could have done this was to take all of the information out of the loop, put it into the setup, and then the loop would be empty. So if we verify that, we'll see that it works. I'll upload the sketch. It's doing the same thing that it was, but now it's using a brightness of 7, so it's showing a very bright display, counting up to 100, pause for a second, and then says done. I notice that we're not calling the blank array. I'm wondering if we do set segments blank, if that will crash and burn on us. So it took that. So let me upload and see what the difference is. It seems to be doing the same thing. It's working in the same fashion. I'll do the same thing up here. See if it makes a difference. Seems to be working the same way. If we change the data to data call, because I noticed that data lights up in red. So I'm curious as to why it's doing that. So I changed this to data call, again, because it was lighting up in red. I'm not sure why. That's probably a keyword for something. But changing this from data to data call basically does the exact same thing that it was doing. I don't know if there's a difference, aside from a little bit more memory usage. So I'll have to look into it and see why I chose to use data instead of data call. So it seems like we're getting back on to a good path here. We're back on track, not letting the crash and burn of day 15 get to me too much. We're back to making code that makes sense. We're trying some new things, and we're all just learning as we go. So that'll conclude this video. I hope you guys are enjoying what you're seeing as you follow along with this and as you follow along with the Inventor.io 30-day kit. If you haven't already, please be sure to check out the affiliate link and order one with my coupon code, which will save you 10% on your purchase. Stay tuned for more videos, including the Inventor.io beta test kit that I received, as well as more Linux CNC content and more CNC machine building content. Please ring the bell if you would like to be notified of upcoming video uploads. If you feel generous and want to contribute to help support the page, I will leave a link for my Patreon down in the description. The proceeds go to support my caffeine addiction to keep me up while I'm editing all these videos and creating all of this content for you guys. It's not a make or break for me, but it is appreciated. And again, make sure you keep an eye out for all of the upcoming content, and we will see you soon.